My name is Alex Duda. I grew and scaled a restoration company from my dad's garage to over 8 figures, and now I'm on a mission to help you grow and scale yours. In today's episode of Albi After Hours, we're going to be talking about the top 4 pillars to a restoration entrepreneur's success. So these 4 pillars are meant to be 4 different aspects of the life of a restoration entrepreneur, and I think they're very important, and each and every one of them serve a purpose, and oftentimes I see restorers focusing on one rather than the other. However, before we get into those pillars, I want to share with you 4 different rules that I've lived my life as an entrepreneur by, and I've kind of discovered scaling a successful restoration company. So the first one is that there is no finish line. And although that might be partially true because we always want to have an exit in mind and we want to have this, ginormous payout, or maybe retirement's that finish line, or maybe sometimes you can think of death as that finish line. Typically, you don't have a finish line, and you're always working and moving towards these moving goals and this moving finish line. And it's very important to take a step back all the time and kind of reflect upon where you got and how you got where throughout these 4 pillars. The second rule that I've learned is that speed is actually very important. It's our goal. The quicker we can do things and the more efficiently we can move through things in all 4 pillars of life, the more successful we're going to be. We all know that the first one with a great idea to market is the one that's going to win, and that's typically the market leader. So fastly doing things, growing fast, building relationships fast, anything that has to do with how quickly we can move through time is absolutely very important to a restoration entrepreneur. Now, when we're looking at our enemy, time is actually our enemy, right? We only have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year. In fact, I used to be so bad at time management that I actually didn't show up to a time management course. So I realized very quickly throughout my career as an entrepreneur that locating time and managing my time was actually one of the most important things. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the fact, like the last rule, is momentum is the currency. Not dollars, not time, not even how fastly you implement things. It's momentum. And the reason I say that is it's a snowball effect. The more we are able to implement things within our business, and we build that giant snowball that has more and more power. I don't know if you've ever seen that, the more successful you get or the more wins that you have, it's almost like those wins exponentially grow. The more excited your team is, the more you're going to exponentially grow. So I think as an entrepreneur, it's very, very, very important to focus on that momentum. Now, moving into the 4 pillars, the first pillar that I want to talk about is business, right? As an entrepreneur, business is obviously one of the areas of focus that we all tend to focus on, and is very important. As a founder, obviously the success of your business, it kind of consumes your life. You take that risk and you're all in for that business to succeed. And it's actually very hard to see yourself without that business. And I was actually in that point. When founding Remexterra in the first couple of years, I really had no life outside of my business, right? And I was kind of miserable, to be honest. And the one question I want to ask you is, we talk about this finish line, but what's your life going to look like when that exit happens, right? Because we all as successful entrepreneurs want to get to that point where we sell our company for X amount of multiple, or we all want to get to that happy retirement. What are we going to do if we don't focus on the other pillars of life? So while the pillar of business is important, and having a vision for where our business is going to go and how our business is going to grow, that's all important, it's also equally important to focus on the other 3 pillars of our lives as entrepreneurs. So the second pillar is actually going to be our relationships. And I think these are very, very, very important. If you're not dedicating specific time to relationships, whether it's your wife, whether it's your family, whether it's your parents, you're doing things wrong, and you're never going to be able to get that time back that you should be spending in nurturing those relationships. So I think the pillar of life that often gets sacrificed is, okay, look, I'll spend time with my kids later. I have a business to grow. Or, my wife understands that, I'm a busy businessman, and I'm so grateful that she lets me, focus on the business and not focus on our marriage, right? Those things are, the first things that get sacrificed, but they're the most important things, honestly. And they're the hardest things to repair when the relationships actually go sour. So I really think that like the second pillar of business, and we want to be equally balanced between both business and relationships. So now the third pillar of a successful restoration entrepreneur is actually your health. And that's actually something that is always neglected too. And I'll give you an example. When I first started out in restoration, I was in the field all the time. I wasn't really eating very healthy because obviously I was go, focused on the business, right? But I was actually in pretty good shape. I was pretty young at the time, and also, doing all the physical labor, so, I was able to stay in shape. However, once I got out of the field and my business progressed to where I was in the office and never in the field, I started noticing that I gained significant weight. I went from like 160 pounds to about 230 pounds, right? And I think a lot of you can relate to that. And the reason behind that is I sacrificed health. And one of the biggest moments that made me realize how important health was is when I almost died from COVID. And I realized, like, look, at the end of the day, if you don't take care of your health and you don't take care of your body, right, you can't run a business and you can't have successful relationships. So it's something that we really have to prioritize, and we always brush off. Like, we know we need to eat healthy, we know that we need to go out and work out and things like those, but we tend to always brush it off because we don't have time and things like those. And we're so focused, laser focused on maybe our relationships and our business. But our health is actually incredibly important. And I challenge every one of you, if you take something away from this, is to go and work on that pillar of your business if you're not doing that. So, and then our fourth pillar of the business is actually going to be spiritual. So now I'm not going to sit here and preach what religion you should do. I'm actually personally agnostic. I don't follow a specific religion. I believe in all of them. However, I think, having questioning your reason for being within the world and kind of thinking of the idea of a greater good is important, and having, a balance within yourself personally, whether, you're Catholic or you're Muslim or whatever religion you may be, right? Believing in that religion, finding out your inner self and like how you fit within the world is actually very important. And if you don't have stability within that fourth pillar, you need to fix that. And at the end of the day, if you really realize like these four pillars all are equally important again, and they're all like part of our lives. We can't succeed without one of them. And our employees at the same time can't succeed if they don't have that balance within all of them. Oftentimes we see employees quit because they have financial troubles, and at home they go and they argue and they get in a divorce, or they have problems at home and it reflects upon their work. Obviously, if our employees aren't healthy and they're not fit, they're at a higher risk for workers' comp claims and things like those. And if our employees don't know where they fit within the universe and where they fit spiritually, chances are they're going to be lost and demotivated and not know. So all these four things are really, really important. And I'll kind of tell you a little bit of like what I did to make sure that I fit in those four pillars, and I'll tell you that my life changed completely. So when it came to business, and I told you that like time was the enemy and is the enemy, scheduling off and blocking off time for those four pillars every single day is very, very important. So I personally have blocks of time to where I focus on being super efficient at business, and I focus just on the things that matter, and all the distractions I try to whittle out. I have specific family time that I block off on my calendar, and I try to do my best to spend time with my family. And then when it comes to health, every single morning I like to start off my days with just a walk. Every single time I get the opportunity to take a meeting with a client, walking down the street or on the block, I try to take advantage of that as well. And I try to think of everything that I eat as food, as fuel for my body, and think of the consequences that unhealthy foods and things like those would have upon my business and my relationships and my spiritual. And then spiritually, I do meditate, I do research, and I've been reading a lot about all kinds of religions to kind of find myself and where I fit within the world. So that's kind of a little bit about, with the four pillars that I believe everybody that is in this industry or outside of this industry as an entrepreneur should look into. I think they're very, very, very important. And a lot of times I find that restoration entrepreneurs really neglect these. Now, if you really like these videos and this content and want to hear more content on how to grow and scale your restoration business, I would really appreciate it if you give us a like on this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel, add me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can also reach out to me below. It was a pleasure having you guys on Albi After Hours tonight, and I look forward to producing more Albi After episodes in the future.